for more on this, let's bring in Hatem Bazian in Berkeley in California. He's a professor of Middle East cultures and languages at the University of California in Berkeley. So Hatem, this is happening now. We understand we're seeing these lines from the Red Cross saying that the first hostages are beginning to be released. I mean, this is going to happen in the coming hours. How do you expect it all to play out?
Well, I expect that there will be a smooth exchange of prisoners that the Palestinians have, Hamas and the Palestinians, Gaza, have committed themselves to the release of the 20 prisoners, and then Israel has already committed to releasing 1,723 or 1,730 prisoners, depending on what will be the final number. So I don't expect any problems or any hiccups in the process of the exchange and in finalizing the phase one. I think the challenges will be forthcoming in the next steps. Are we going to see the next step being carried out? The conference that is being held at Sharm el-Sheikh, what is this conference will entail? Is there any concrete steps that will be taken, considering that President Trump is coming? He's going to spend about 4 hours in Israel to witness or at least meet with the families of the released prisoners. And then he will head to Sharm el-Sheikh to preside on this almost 31 or 32 countries that will be participating. So we'll have to wait and see what are the concrete steps after the prisoners' exchange.
Certainly, Hatem, because as we've seen, as you say, things are holding so far. The ceasefire's held, the aid has begun coming in. We're seeing the beginning of this hostage handover, prisoner and hostage handover starting. But there is a lot of uncertainty ahead, isn't there? And Trump said, we've seen his comments from on the flight over saying that the war is over. And now we do know that Trump's applied more pressure on Netanyahu than US presidents before him. But the real test will be what happens after the hostages will be returned, won't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't yet know whether Trump will be able to continue pressuring Netanyahu and Israel for a complete end of the war on Gaza, on the Palestinians. I still think that Netanyahu will try to maneuver around and possibly return to continued attack on Gaza. It might not be in the same level of invasion and full-scale warfare, but I do expect Israel to continue its assault on the Palestinians. It still controls a considerable part of Gaza. It has not withdrawn outside of Gaza. So the idea that Israel and war on Gaza is finished, I don't think so. It still holds the vast territories, the agriculture areas, the withdrawal to the strategic positioning in there. So I expect that to happen. Also, Netanyahu's government is still beholden to the extreme right, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, and others who are not satisfied. So they will celebrate the return of the prisoners from Gaza, but I do expect them to urge for another cycle of war and confrontation. Now, do we think that the Sharm el-Sheikh summit is going to try to ask for a higher ceiling for ending the Gaza? I do expect that we're going to see much of this grandstanding that will emerge in Sharm el-Sheikh. But at the end of the day, it's going to be between Trump and Netanyahu. And I do expect Netanyahu to try to activate some of his support in the United States, to activate AIPAC, the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, to activate Senate and Congress, to put more pressure on Trump in such a way that Israel's freedom of operation and continued hostilities and war will be there. The second, I do expect that Netanyahu to pull again the attempt or a way to try to target Iran. He's already have carried out attacks on Lebanon. So I do expect that front to be re-energized as a way to try to divert from the developments on Gaza. So it's still, we are in an open Israeli warfare on all fronts. And it's not going to be taken that we have moved into post-war in Gaza. I think it will be a managed war rather than an open war.
Hatem, as you say, this will come down to between Netanyahu and Trump. We've seen in recent days calls for international pressure on Netanyahu. But as we've seen in the last 2 years of war, international pressure hasn't done much, has it? It is certainly up to Donald Trump, do you think? I mean, what does he need to do in order to make sure that Netanyahu adheres to this plan?
Well, Trump was hoping that he will be nominated and given the Nobel Peace Prize. So that side of the pressure of Trump is no longer there, considering that the decision to award the Venezuelan person for the Peace Prize. So Trump actually has less pressure. He wants to accomplish what he considered to be the greater peace in the region and stability, possibly to expand the Abraham Accord. But I don't think he has the total political muscle that people would perceive to actually push Israel further. I do think that he is carrying a balancing act. There's a considerable base of support for Israel among the evangelicals in the United States, as well as the Senate and Congress. And the U.S. media is still beholden to supporting Israel. So I think more of this is going to be Trump doing a performative politics, a contractual politics to try to get U.S. position in the region a little bit more solidified. But at the end of the day, I don't think that he will press Netanyahu and Israel in the way that people expect Trump to do. I think this is far more performative on his part rather than substantive.
Hatem, as we've been discussing, so much uncertainty beyond the handover of the hostages and prisoners today, one of those holes that seems to be in the ceasefire deal is the fact that there is recognition in the deal for Palestinians' aspirations for statehood, but no roadmap to get there. What are some of the other concerns that you have about this plan beyond today's handover?
Well, I think a number of issues are very clear and difficult to come by. One is the idea that Trump is calling for a total disarmament of Hamas. Israel has failed in 2 years to actually bring about any type of end or to be successful in not only disarming Hamas, but actually to register any major military success directly against Hamas. Yes, Israel destroyed almost 90% of the building, killed hundreds of thousands. I think the figure is closer to 600,000 plus if we actually are looking at the figures. So the idea that the Trump plan calls for the disarmament of Hamas, how is it gonna be done? Who is gonna do it? And what mechanism that the United States or the allies that are coming in, including UK, France, and others that are coming to the scene, or a combination of Arab forces. I can't see this happening because, again, Hamas is still is very strong and capable within the Gaza Strip. Second, the notion of having a governing structure that is literally managed by an international body to be led by none other than Tony Blair. I know that in the past few days, Tony Blair's name possibly has been pushed to the back, but the idea that we have Tony Blair and other European or Americans coming in to oversee the governing of Gaza Strip, it seems to be a non-starter for the Gazans as well as for Hamas. I think what Hamas is accepting is a group of Palestinian technocrats that will be governing over Gaza. So Trump plans call for this structure. Tony Blair has no credibility whatsoever, considering that he was one of the architects of the Iraq disaster, and it seems that he is intended on seeing another disaster to actually come into fruition, possibly on Gaza. The third, which is the big question, is the reconstruction of Gaza. How is the reconstruction going to take place? Which agency is going to do it? What mechanism and processes this will come about? And who is actually going to provide the resources to do so? I know there has been floating ideas of possibly some of the Gulf states that are going to come forth, but absent the idea of so-called disarmament, a governing structure, and also committing resources, I don't think that is a possibility in there. The last point, which again is what Israel is calling for, and again, these are part of the plans, is the notion of de-radicalization of the Gazan population. That's just as a notion it's an absurdity as a notion to speak in relations to Gaza that has faced a genocide, rather than actually speaking of de-radicalization of Israeli society. 82% of it actually is supporting the genocide in Gaza and supporting ethnic cleansing, but yet it's the Palestinians that are being almost to be committed to re-education camps to transform them. So all these issues, I see them as to be a major challenges and non-starters as we move from phase one, which I think is going to be carried forth. But the next phases, I think the Palestinians in Gaza and the Palestinians in general will have a major challenges and objections to it. I do see that the Palestinians are demanding total freedom, a total end to the current occupation, the current siege that they are facing, and considering that the international community, 142 countries, already have recognized independent Palestinian state, I don't see that this Trump plan is addressing the global consensus that is emerging, that the Palestinians need to actually be recognized as an independent state today rather than in a distant future. So I think those are the critical issues that I see that will be on the table in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Hatem, we very much appreciate your analysis here with us on TRT World. Hatem Bazian, he is a professor of Middle East cultures and languages at the University of California in Berkeley.